think we're going to get back to the guns, and it'll be a big thing, but let's, I have a number of questions, because you said you co-chair on appropriations.
Ranking member, not a co-chair.
Ranking member, okay. These all impact the towns, so I have several questions, so bear with me. The transportation fund for children, my understanding is Malloy wants to cut that from, there's 24.5 million, he wants to cut it to 19.1 and give 5.4 to the towns. Is that, does that have any momentum? Because that's 24 million, or 19 million the towns aren't going to get. I have a series of these questions, so maybe you want me to ask them all, or you want to address one of them?
No, well, that one, I don't believe has much support on either side of the aisle. In fact, there were representatives from the other side of the aisle that asked that very same question to the Commissioner of Education just the other day when I was in a working group meeting. So I don't believe that one's going to have much.
There's another 76 million in priority school districts. He wants to shift that to the towns to create a new office of early childhood. Does that have any momentum?
That's a good question. Do you see that anywhere, gentlemen? Division.
These all impact. What he wants to do, my understanding from seeing all of this, is he's saying no new taxes in Hartford. He's going to take it from the municipalities, and we're going to end up with property taxes.
You know, can I, if I might, my apologies, because I actually just finished a meeting about tomorrow's legislation that's coming out, and I just got to look at it, and I'm going to have to be explaining it. So anyway, the budget overall, I would like to say, and first of all, this is a wonderful group, and it's so nice to have a full house. But there are a lot of issues, and probably not even enough time tonight to hear from everyone. And so I was just concerned to make sure that we have the time to be able to get to everyone. But it is the most confusing budget that I have seen in my tenure there. And by the way, I represented Middlebury 10 years ago, and then through the redistricting process was not allowed to continue to represent it. So anyway, I now have the pleasure and the honor of sharing with Rob a small portion of that. And so
I understand that, Jim. I mean, if it's confusing to you, it's more confusing.
Well, and let me tell you why.
And I have several more questions here.
Yeah, what's going on? The governor's budget to us has merged a number of lines together. So it makes it difficult for us to follow the progression of programs and funds that existed in the past, because in many instances they're all put together. Couple that with, and I don't know how you feel about this, Rob, because Rob and I are both on the Appropriations Committee. We have a new format that was just introduced by our nonpartisan office, and it's also very hard because it's a totally new format to once again follow. So it's making things pretty labor intensive. So on the education stuff, and I'm not on that subcommittee, I'm on the hiring subcommittee, but the priority school districts, there is a reconfiguration, and it is, and I don't know if it exactly translates to this new Office of Early Childhood, but this is an endeavor that has been the governor's proposal now, actually for 4 years, and this is the first time we've actually seen him, you know, propose it to us in real dollars and cents. So he has moved around a lot of the education accounts. I can't say to you definitively that he has taken priority school money and put it into the Office of Early Childhood. All I can say to you is the overall SDE budget is completely refigured, and priority school districts is one of those areas that, you know, has not been priority for him, and you see that by virtue of the funding. So, and the legislature, by the way, and Rob's on one side, you know, he's on a number of the committees, actually probably all of them. Are you on all the subcommittees?
Just about.
Yeah, and I'm actually not on as many as he is, and I'm almost grateful for that at this point, but it will be interesting to see if the legislature, how much they rework this budget. I heard someone talk about the property tax issue on automobiles. There is not support for that. And so it'll be, you know, you'll see a change on that. But back to your education question. So that whole budget is reconfigured.
Okay, let me ask my questions. Then we
Which was about priority school
we can
districts,
do
if I
the political
recall.
stuff. the Pequot Mohegan Fund, there's $56 million in that. He's proposing to take, that's all the money for the slot machines. He's proposing to take that money away and use it elsewhere.
Not necessarily take it away, but he's gonna bond for it.
Right.
It's gonna bond for it. All but $5 million.
It's a bad idea.
The pilot state-owned property grants, now, doesn't impact Middlebury, but any town that has a municipality, any municipality has a state building or a prison or whatever that case may be.
Hospitals.
Right. Currently, for folks that don't know what that is,
Prisons are
that is in lieu of them getting property taxes. So if you take the Roland building downtown Waterbury, if he takes that money away, the town of Waterbury is gonna have to make up the property tax somewhere, because they're gonna take the pilot money away from them. It's that cruel.
Well, what he's saying, he's taking the pilot money away, but he's gonna give it back to us in education dollars, you know.
So he's
our
gonna shift
mayor-
it.
Right.
So
Our mayor
sooner or later,
saying you can't use that.
municipalities are gonna end up absorbing millions of dollars because,
Well, I think what the governor's rationale is, well, if I take 10 million away in pilot money from water, I'm gonna give you 10 million more in education dollars, but it doesn't work, because the mayor can't use that to run the city.
a couple more questions. The municipal revenue share grant. Now, for people who know what that is, that's 0.01% of the sales tax, and that is the real estate conveyance tax that the municipalities get. Now, not that I'm a big fan of that, but he wants to take that and move it to Hartford also, is that correct?
Yes.
Get a lot of other heads, so I
Yes.
guess, all right. I guess, sooner or later, what happens to the municipalities? Are we gonna be stuck? Because what's gonna end up happening if all this money goes elsewhere? What's the recourse? For everybody just raise their property taxes? Because that's the only way you're gonna get money.
Yes.
So Bill, that's my point. I think we're going to see some major reconfigurations of the governor's proposed budget. There are many years when the governor proposes his budget and it's just tinkered with around the edges. I think that this year, if any, you will see much different result of the budget that the governor proposed to what gets accepted. I hope that's what happens, because there are, and you've mentioned a few of them, but there are many really systemic changes in this budget. Now, that is not to say that municipalities, as well as every entity, is going to feel the results of the budget. But it should not be in such a large degree put onto one entity. Part of the problem that is being rolled out here is the fact that there was a negotiated settlement which said that there would be 2 years of wage freeze, but 4 years of of job protection. So we are now, the end of the 2 years on the wage freeze are over, and so those numbers are being rolled out into the budget. In a time when, quite frankly, this budget is so stressed that it really can't accommodate those. And then on the other hand, there is not the latitude to be able to address the cost of those inflationary wage increases.
Two more questions and I'll vacate the floor. Two bills, SB 823 and SB 824. Bill SB 823 is a response to Sandy Hook. It's going to be an unfunded mandate for workers' compensation for first responders. My understanding in talking to Courtney, that bill has some push in the Labor Committee. Bill SB 823 is another unfunded mandate which allows firemen and police to have workers' comp for cardiac events over a 72-hour period. Now, what upsets me about that bill is, not that I have nothing against first responders, I have not much respect, but if you're a fireman, 99% of the firehouses in the state of Connecticut work 3 days on, 3 days off, so that would be a perpetual benefit if that bill were to go through. Now, in both cases, if you look at it, I can give you an example. So if I was a police officer, because I deal with workers' comp all the time, but for people to realize that, in a small town, you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for your premiums. Hundreds of thousands, not pennies. So I'm a police officer and I see my closest friend get shot and killed. I can put in for a stress disorder and I can conceivably go on and cop for the rest of my life. Or if I were a fireman and I saw one of my cohorts fall through a roof, I could do the same thing. I can't tell you how much workers' comp has been abused in the state of Connecticut, but it's the tune of billions, not millions, billions. It's beyond huge. I mean, I look at both of those bills. Say I'm a fireman and I'm just finishing a training program and I have 3 days off. And on the second day off, I decide I'm going to go run a road race up in Litchfield, and I have a heart attack. Under that bill, I'm covered forever. So I mean, from what I understand, both those bills do have weight and they're being pushed in the Labor Committee. Now, unfortunately, if you look at the makeup of the Labor Committee, it's like the majority are Democrats and you got 4 Republicans. So I don't know what kind of clout they're going to have there, but I'd be really concerned about those 2 bills. I can honestly tell you, if people don't know anything about workers' comp, this would be a good argument for you to go after your legislators. In most towns, they have what is known as salary continuation. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. But if I'm a worker in a town and I get injured on the job, I'm just going to give you examples. I receive approximately, I go workers' comp after 7 days, so I receive approximately, let's for argument's sake, say I have a weekly salary of $1,000. If I round out the numbers on what I receive from the state, I'm getting $700 in pre-tax dollars. And then what salary continuation does, and the unions have it written in their contracts, I make them whole for the other 300. So they're getting their $1,000 to stay home. Now, what makes that even more complicated in this state, the workers' comp laws say that, gee, Joe Smith works overtime every week and he gets $150 more a week. I have to calculate, even though he's not working overtime, that $150 into that comp settlement. So now he's at $1,150. Worse, they don't pay tax on the first 70%. That's tax-free. So in reality, when you boil it down, the guy's making $1,250 to stay home doing nothing. What incentive does he have to come back?
Those 2 bills were actually before the Labor Committee last week and they had public hearings on it. But the Speaker of the House, to his credit, doesn't want to touch the workers' comp law as it is written today. So actually Joan alluded to, she has to bring out a bill tomorrow, which is actually going to take place of I guess SB 24 for the Newtown piece. I don't think the bill, it's probably going to come out of labor, but we're being told by the Speaker that it's probably not going to come up for a vote because of the compromise that we're actually doing tomorrow, and I know Joan has more details than I do on that, but I think it's a great compromise. I think we're going to make everyone whole, and it's not going to cost the taxpayers a dime. And SB 823, what I heard of the bill, because I was in that hearing room, is if a heart attack takes place while on the job, not at home skiing, running, or anything like that.
They're already covered. They're already covered.
But if they're working, well,
on the job, if it happens on the job, they're covered already.
Right, but there's some arguments that it might be their diet, it might be something else that contribute to it. They want to make sure that it is covered. So that's the way I heard it, but I could be wrong on that. But tomorrow we're doing a Newtown bill, which is going to be an e-cert, emergency certified, that everyone agreed that needs to get done. So.
On the
So you're
workers'
saying
comp.
everybody agreed there's going to be the vote tomorrow on these?
Just on the emergency,
First
the first responders and anyone that had, because a lot of them are still out of work and their workman's comp is running out.
So on those 2 bills, Bill, they're Senate bills, are they? They're both Senate bills, weren't they? Yeah. So there's a new Senate chair in the Labor Committee, and they were both, I believe, her proposals. We have seen them actually before. So they will, I'm sure, get voted out of that committee. The Labor Committee, has that that bent. And what will happen is they'll come to the Senate floor. Now, we'll end up, that's in the Senate, having to caucus them, and I think that there's probably not going to be support for the one issue, and that is with regard to what spawned the Newtown situation on first responders, because we are doing, well, the bill we do tomorrow is going to be to set up a mechanism, a fund that the state, as well as, and we're using the United Way actually of the Newtown area, because they did the fund for the actual victims and their family. They came forward and volunteered to do it for the first responders, because workers' comp does not cover what's called mental. In order to get coverage under workers' comp, you have to first have a physical injury, and then if what results from your physical injury, there's also a mental condition, trauma, whatever, however it's defined, then under workers' comp as it exists now, you can get coverage for counseling, therapy, whatever it is. But if you, under workers' comp as it exists now, have a trauma situation, but you haven't had a physical injury, and that is where we're talking about the first responders in the Newtown situation, you do not get workers' comp coverage. So this fund, this emergency certified bill tomorrow, which has been a consensus, because everybody, all the four caucuses worked on it, will have a mechanism which will be a fund. There, money can be received to address first responders' issues with regard to mental situations, therapy, trauma, behavioral health, even though they did not have a physical injury. And that's the nature of the fund, just boiled down in simple terms. So it's...
That's an excellent way to address it.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And to this gentleman over here on the car taxes, it represents $600 million to the state of Connecticut. Municipalities will never let that fly, by the way. I mean, there will be a march on the Capitol.
Yeah, the mayors have been up continuous.
I think
Well, there's going to be another march
Middlebury
next 15.
loses around 3 and 5.
If you want to hear some of that.